Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about aging with our power intact. Isn't this a thinker that we really and truly need to think about? And luckily, I have Tamar back onto my show because I enjoyed it the first time. If you guys didn't listen about the birthdays, well, you can always listen again because, man, this conversation today is going to be empowering and hopefully uplifting. So thank you so much, Tamara, for coming onto my show.
Thanks for
I'm
welcoming me back, Mitzi. I'm delighted to be here.
awesome, awesome. So let's just dive in, right? So when you hear those words, aging with your power intact, what does that make you think about?
It makes me think about the journey we're all on in life. If we're
Yeah.
lucky, we will get older. If we're not lucky, we're going to be listening to the messages society gives us into thinking that as we age, we become less powerful, less visible, less valid, less important, less useful. That's a lie. It is not true. And I would hope this conversation inspires everybody to reconsider our approach to aging and to understand that once again, it's a privilege and it's a form of power. The older we get, the more life experience we have, the wiser we become. And it actually puts us into the revered state of being an elder. An elder is not defined by age, it's defined by the wisdom we have by living long enough, right? And a lot of young people in today's world are actually hungering for elders. Our society is so youth obsessed that we're not even allowed to look old, right? Without being judged, without being criticized. Oh, look at her. She's got wrinkles. Why isn't she doing something about it? Look at her. Her hair's turning gray. Why is it? It's making her look old. You know, if she colored her hair, she'd look so much younger, as if that's the better way to be. Now, understanding society has a standard of beauty, it's very youth defined, right? We look at the influencers, we look at the products that are being sold to us and the procedures, all about youth enhancing, all about defying age. I'm just here to say, let's not just go along with it and accept it as normal. Let's challenge it. Let's air it out and say, wait, is this the healthy way for me to age? I can't speak about you. I can only speak about me and make my own choices around aging and how I want to age with my power intact.
Yes. Oh, I love that. You spot on so many great points about valuing youth and seeing that so empowerment. But reality, it's like, come on now. It has its moments for its moment, for its generation, for that year, for those years, for that time of our lives. Yes, to be youthful and vibrant and full of life. I get it. Awesome. Yay. But also, we don't lose any of that when we get older. If anything, it gives us this grace, you know what I mean, of understanding, of compassion, and like you said, wisdom, because when we are dealing with the older generation, they have this look upon them that just says, I just you just need a hug. I already know what you need. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's the best thing about dealing with older people, is that they just know what you are going to need, or what you need to be said without even saying it sometimes. You know what I mean? Because they've seen those looks before. They've seen those heartbreaks before. They've seen that pain before, and they know, and they're relatable. These youth don't know pain. These youth don't know suffering like that. I mean, maybe there's a chance that maybe they do, but then a lot of times they don't. They're living in ignorance. So it's just like, knowing that when you get older, that you will still have your power is truly beautiful. And the fact that you said that people are looking for elders to have that community, to have that understanding, to have that grace, is so true and so valid, because I grew up with just my mom. She was the black sheep in her family. So she and my father was the black sheep in his family. So nobody really talked to them. So we didn't really
Mm.
talk to any of the siblings or relatives or anything like that. You know, when they finally like cut everybody off. So it's just like, me and my sisters, we grew up yearning for that older comfort, for that older direction and guidance. You know what I mean? Like, we had to literally figure out everything on our own, stumble on our own, and the advice that our parents gave us was so reckless that it wasn't even advice sometimes. You know what I mean? So it's just that it's truly something that we've all truly need, is that community of the elders, because they do hold so much value. And it's funny because just recently, one of my dad's side of the family, they came to visit, and she's a lot older, and she was just so loving and so caring and so sweet, and I was just like, man, I wish we had this growing up. I wish I knew you growing up. You know what I mean? So yes, I agree. And I think One thing I would love to know is when you finally got to this age of just embracing all that you are, how did that really, like, how did you really handle that?
There's a story that happened. I was 37 years old. And during that time, I was an environmental educator. I'd go to schools and give assemblies about how to protect nature through a variety of ways that we could do that. So I was ready to go on stage, but the symphony was there before me. There were four people in the symphony, to a group of fourth and fifth graders, and it was question and answer time. And one of the
Okay.
kids raised their hand and say, "How long have you been playing your instruments?" And there was one man and three women, and the man went first. He said, "Well, I'm 47. I started playing the oboe when I was 10, so I've been playing for 37 years." No problem. He said he was 47. Big deal. The next woman said, "Well, I've been playing the violin since I was 14. I'm not telling you how old I am." And she was a woman who was probably in her 60s.
Okay.
Another woman said, and she was also probably a woman in her 50s. She said, "Well, I've been playing the cello since I was 12 and I'm 29." Like that joke we say when we say we're 29, we're clearly not. And then the third woman, she said, "I've been playing the flute since I was 10 and I'm 36." And she was 36. And she was too young to lie or joke about her age, but the way she said "I'm 36," that she swallowed it and she was ashamed to admit she was 36, I was like, this is not okay. What kind of messages are we sending these kids? The man gets to be 47, no problem, but the other women have to lie, joke, or swallow their age. I am so not into this. That woke me up. And I was on next. So I was talking about composting. We're using the green bin in San Francisco to compost. And I found a way to say, "And students, I'm 37 years old. And by the time you are my age, people are going to be composting all over the place." And every time I was giving a class presentation or an assembly, I found a way to put my age into that shamelessly and boldly. Up until the point, I think I left my job at like 51. I was saying that well past, into my 50s, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I honestly, especially as I got older, I felt like I was flashing my underwear when I admitted my age from stage. Really, it was such a subversive thing to do as a woman. But that was my point.
Mm.
It is shameless to pronounce your age. I'm 59 and a half. I'll be 60 in January. It's a big age. I'm aware that it's coming. It means a lot. And why am I hiding it? Why am I ashamed of it? Why don't I get to be 60? Why don't I get to be 59 and a half? Who says I can't be? And who says that it diminishes my power, diminishes my cachet by being my age? I'm not buying it. But when we all do buy into that, we perpetuate it, right? We have got to stop hiding our age, lying about our age, and being ashamed about our age if we want to change the cultural narrative that says aging is bad, right? Aging is something to
Yes.
judge. I'm not into it. Now, for those people, and there are some people in entertainment careers, that want to keep themselves looking and acting and seeming younger because it's a very ageist culture, especially in that field. Do what you want. I'm not telling you to do something outside of your comfort zone. I'm just encouraging your listeners to
Yeah.
consider the radical act of owning your age proudly and without shame and letting it be a source of true power for you. Nobody gets to, and that was the thing I realized as I was getting older. Like, nobody gets to define my worth. Nobody gets to define my power, especially as I age. That's purely an inside job. I do that for myself.
Exactly, and I love that because I feel like that right there automatically gave you your power back because it's like, so what? I've aged, I've grown, I've lived, I through the years I've lived. You've seen so much. You've seen wars, you've seen fights, you've seen disagreements, you've seen peace, you've seen love, you've seen joy, you've seen happiness. You know what I mean? You've seen it all. So what's to say that you can't be empowered by that? And I agree. I think that's something that and I'm glad that you touched down on that, how somebody said in the performance how they didn't want to talk about their age and that you hear that all the time. You don't talk about your age like you don't talk about your paycheck. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like those
right.
are the two things you don't talk about. And it's just so crazy because it's like what are we competing for when it comes to age? You know what I mean? Like what is the competition? What is there needs to be a tug of war for this fight of youth. You know what I mean? I've seen women go to the furthest lengths to restructure their face from being in their 70s to being looking like they're in their 20s all over again. And I'm just like, wow, that's crazy, but like, yeah, you look good and I hope you feel good, but is it really worth all that pain that you had to endure? I mean, because you lose a sense of self because we see it all the time. Like people say, "Oh, you're acting out of your age." We see people in their 40s and 50s trying to dress like their 20s and teens, and then they get judged for that. But then they
Mm,
also get judged for not trying to be like that either. So it's just like,
right.
where's the balance? You know what I mean? Because damn if you do and damn if you don't. And it's really a frustrating situation. So it's like for you, how do you deal with that, especially with appearance and dressing a certain way? And oh, you're supposed to dress this way and look this way and not have so much makeup and you got to wear appropriate clothes. Oh my goodness. How do you deal with that?
That's a great question. And I love everything you just said, damned if you do, damned if you don't. I think it really comes down to our personal choice. If I want to wear skin tight jeans and a tank top and look like I did when I was 20, not that I wore that stuff when I was 20 either, but that's my choice. I get to do that. And I want to be very clear that this is not a conversation about judgment of women's choices and men's choices about how they age. Age as you will, even if you want to go through all that you got to do to reshape your face in your 70s to look like your 20s. God bless you. Do what you want. No judgment here. However, when we do it out of fear, that's very different than doing it out of love. I know
Yeah.
women, young women in their early 20s that are starting to do Botox because they don't want a crease to show up on their forehead. They're being preventative, right? As if wrinkles are the worst possible thing to have. I really personally love my wrinkles. I love being able to raise my eyes really big and see all these, like, look at this expression happening in my forehead. Like I'm
Yeah.
communicating something, right?
Yeah.
And I feel sad when I can't see women do that. They certainly have nice, smooth skin, right, without wrinkles, but I'm missing some sort of emotional connection. And I actually heard that when mothers of young children do Botox and freeze their face so that there's no expression, the kids can't read their energy the same way they can when a mama raises her eyebrows or frowns a little bit. There's so much coming through our faces non-verbally when we're allowed to have natural facial movement that when we freeze our facial muscles and we can't let that out, our kids are actually not getting the proper cues from us when we're communicating with them. That was a very powerful insight that made a lot of sense to me. But in terms of my own choices as I age, age changes us. And I really don't want to look like I did when I was 29. I really don't. I see myself changing in the mirror. Again, I see my hair changing. I see my skin sagging. I see my skin tone changing. And my choice around that is to just say hello to myself. Hello. This is the new version of myself. Hello, I don't know you with silvering hair. I don't know you with white hair, but one day I hope to know you with white hair. I hope I get to live long enough to have white hair, and I will say hello to you in the mirror when the time comes. But I am paying attention to the changes that are going on with my face, with my body, with my mind, so that I'm not caught off guard and shocked by what I've turned into, so that I have this reaction like, who is this? Because the thing
Yeah.
about aging is this. I know what I've looked like my whole life. I'm starting to look like a woman I don't recognize because I've never seen myself old. And it can be
Yeah.
hard on the ego, right? Ego is just another word for self image. How do we see ourselves? If I always see myself with thick, luxurious black hair and now it's turning silver, whoa, I don't know myself like that. I'm not comfortable. I might want to start dyeing my hair. And if that's my choice and I can choose it at any point, of course, God bless me if I choose that for myself. I'm not choosing that for myself. I actually, perfectly fine with my hair changing color. But my point is that these are choices I make every day about how I live in the world. I do these podcasts, I put on my makeup, I do my hair, I get dressed. I don't wear this kind of makeup in my day to day life. I don't need to, I don't want to, but if I wanted to, I could, right? It's really for me to decide. It's not for other people to determine what's appropriate for me or not. But again, I
Mm.
want to say that as we step into each age and each season of our life, and we do it with grace and curiosity, there's a lot more inner peace that we exude. And that is a form of beauty. That is a form of power, right? I actually
Absolutely.
look at one of the things I do is I look at older women. I look at older role. I want to see older women age the way that I want to age. I'm looking for role models. I was in Europe this spring and I was in Spain and I was in France. And in both places, I saw women who had their hair getting white and they were radiant and beautiful and joyful. They were stylish. They weren't trying to do anything outside of their age group. They weren't trying to look any different than their age. But the way they inhabited their life and their radiance was so beautiful. I'm like, that's what I want to look like when I'm in my late 60s. I want to look just like that. I want to look radiant and stylish and confident and happy with my life. That to me is aging with your power intact.
I love that. I love everything that you said. And yes, a clear notion, no judgment, because this is a judge-free zone. This is a safe place to think and to embody everything that you are. So yes, thank you for making that disclaimer. And I also just want to thank you for also talking about how in your when you get older, you go through this type of body dysmorphia where you don't necessarily recognize yourself, because I think that's one thing that's true. Even when I went from not having kids to now having kids and seeing my body change, sometimes I still have that body dysmorphia. Like I don't recognize the woman that I see anymore in the mirror, because it's like I'm no longer that woman. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm now I am who I am. So it's just like we go through these stages, man, women, doesn't matter, humans, human beings, we go through these stages of puberty, and then we go through these stages of regular and then menopause, and even men go through their own manly menopause ways too, you know what I mean? So it's just like we go through these stages of changes, and we truly have to learn to love and embody every stage of them, because it's new. You know what I mean? We're not going to know what to do when it's new, but it's about learning along as you go. And that's why I love when you said that when you go out and about and you see the older women and you're like, you know what, that's exactly what I want. I absolutely agree, because when I was a CNA, just in high school, I would work with other individuals in their 80s, in their 90s, and they made me realize that you are not old. You know what I mean? 50s, if people in their 50s, they're not even old. They're halfway there. People are living past 100. Like you're halfway there. Like boom, the halfway mark. You got so much more life to live, so much things to do. Start a new bucket list if that's the case. But it's just like there's so much life out there. And then I seen this one lady, she used to just always want to like get like her put on her little powder, put on her lipstick before going to the dining room, put her little clips in her hair, and just make herself feel good going out and being around other people. And I respected that. Oh my goodness. I value that, because it just shows like self-care and self-love is so important the older you get, because all you really have is yourself, and you have to learn to love yourself and all that you are and all that you've been through and all that you're gonna go through. So this is like, for you, how important is self-care when it comes to self-loving yourself?
Great question. And self-care is key. And it's self-care in terms of my emotional state of being. There's certain things I do, like I don't watch the news. That's a form of self-care because it's so toxic and painful. Like I have to have
Yeah.
boundaries around that, and I choose that for myself. In terms of
Yes.
self-care physically, I make sure that I'm healthy because even when I'm sick with the flu, I feel so miserable. I don't enjoy life. And I learned that if you want to have a happy life, be happy in your body. If your body's not comfortable, it's hard to have a happy life. So whatever investments I make in my health, you know, wealth for old age, we need to invest in our health as well, right?
Yeah.
Because without a healthy body, you're not enjoying your bucket list. So that's a really important part for me in terms of self-care as well. And in terms of loving myself, I've talked about this on other podcasts, and I think it's great when you love yourself, but it's a pretty tall order. How about if we just start liking ourselves, right?
Yes.
How about if we start seeing ourselves as our own friend, right? Like
Yes.
I learned a long time ago, I was making myself laugh, and it was like, oh, I get my own jokes more than anybody. Like, oh, how fun. I get my own sense of humor. Do you know how much fun I can have with myself on the inside, just getting my own jokes? That began the journey of being my own inner friend. And so that I do like myself, right? I mean, do I love myself? I don't know really what that, I mean, sure, I love myself, but the feeling of love is a very deep feeling. It's a very soft feeling. And it's not always easy to tune into that feeling of love. But I like myself. I have a good relationship with myself. If you were to put a microphone into my brain when I was 20, you would not want to hear what I was saying to myself. I was not kind to myself, right? You put a microphone to my brain now, it is remarkably peaceful, serene, and friendly in here towards myself. And I've noticed that. And that was also something else age gave me. And so age is a real wonderful magician in terms of how it softens us on the inside, brings us the wisdom. And when I think about my favorite people in life as a child, it was my great aunties and it was my grandparents, right? With their graying hair and their old bodies. And I loved them so much. And as I age, I want to be an old white-haired lady to my grandnieces. I want them to see Aunt Tamar looking like an old lady because I actually don't know if they're going to see that many old ladies in their life, given the choices that people are doing to keep that eternal youthfulness. I actually want to change that. I want to be the old lady. Like that's what it looks like to be an old lady. I'm excited about that. I'm not rush, but I'm excited.
Yes, yes, because you get to embody it. You literally step into it and embrace it for all that it comes with. And it really does come with this sense of of just knowing that that's the type of person that I'll go to. Like if I go to like a, let's say, an office for like a health clinic or whatever, it's crowded and there's barely any places to sit, I find the old people and I go sit next to them. You know what I mean? I don't go find the young folks. I don't go find the families. I don't go be by myself. I'd rather go sit back next to an old folk because they have some funny stories and they're so kind. And if they're really nice, they'll give you a little piece of candy. You know what I mean? And they are
Yeah.
so sweet. And I also really do enjoy the fact that you said that the self-care is really important and how it was different from when you were young versus what it is now. And I
Yeah.
think that's truly what time gives us. You know what I mean? Time gives us this opportunity to heal and to shift our perspective. You know what I mean? It gives us this time to mature and to evolve. And that's why I read somewhere that time cannot always heal all wounds unless you don't shift your perspective during that time. And that's true
Yeah.
because we can look at people who are immature and they are in their 50s but still act like they're 16. You know what I mean? So it's just like we really have to allow time to be the shifter of our perspective and to adjust us accordingly so that we can truly love ourselves in a different way, talk to ourselves in a different way, and manage life in a different way. I respect the fact that you don't watch the news. Hey, I respect it because sometimes that's can be so crippling to just hear all the negative, negative, negative. It's not uplifting. It's not helping me in any type of way, and it's not going to be helpful to certain people who don't receive it in that manner because they just feel like this overload of chaos happening in the world. Like, ugh, is it can be paralyzing, absolutely paralyzing. Like, why would you want that nonsense? No. So yes, I totally understand that aspect. And oh man, time is catching up to us. Time really catches up to us really fast on my show. Ah, but what can be some lasting words that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking
Well,
tomorrow?
the first time we met, I was here to talk about my book, How to Have a Happy Birthday. And in it, I talk about embracing your age and I talk about celebrating your birthday as a ritual to mark time as it passes. And I said, I'm going to be turning 60 in January. That's a really big birthday for me. And I'm already thinking about it and planning for it so that when I do turn 60, I've ritualized it enough, I've thought about it enough so that I'm ready to welcome it. Instead of fighting it and being afraid of it, it's like, welcome, welcome 60s, because time
Mhm.
is marching on. And as we get older and there's less time ahead of us, our mortality becomes brighter and more real. And that's a good thing for me. I think that's a good thing because it makes me want to live my life more intensely and not squander this wonderful life I have. I'm having a good life. I've made good contributions in this life, which is part of my definition of having a good life. And so what more
Yeah.
can I do before I take my last breath? And getting older helps me ask that question. So in addition to honoring our age, when we honor our birthday, that helps mark the time so that we embrace each year that we are lucky enough to be alive.
Oh, absolutely. You hit it spot on because my father-in-law literally just passed away in his sleep, and it was really hard on the family. I mean, like we spoke to him on Sunday, and come Monday morning, I get a call from my mother-in-law saying that he did not wake up. And it just makes
Wow.
you realize like and he was only 72. So still very
Wow.
young. Like his
Yeah.
cognitive mind was so sharp. Like he remembered
Oh,
things from like the 60s and 70s, and he spoke to me like if he knew everything from the air was swifting to the left. You know what I mean? Like he knew so much. He was so like spot on. And it's like you never know
you never
when you
know.
will take that last breath. So it's like
Mm-mm.
when you have that opportunity to seize the day and really see it as a present, as a gift, because that's all that we have is today. And if you're
That's right.
making the most of today, and then you know that if you were to die in your sleep or die tomorrow or die in 5-10 minutes, you can have that peace of mind that you did what you did. You have the peace of mind that you spoke lovely to the people that you do love and you do care about, and you have a good impactful life. And it's truly something that I embody now. Ever since he passed away, it has changed my perspective on life and death in such a way that makes me really urge everyone to just seize the day, do the best that you can, and do it well. If you only could do one thing in your day because you feel overwhelmed and stressed out, then do that one thing very well and then be done. But at least you did that one thing very well and you can live happy knowing that you did it. So it's just like we have to remember that. Like we are only here for a short amount of time, whatever that time frame is, because everybody's different. But when that time comes to cross that bridge, at least that we can die happy knowing that we did the life that we wanted to live, you know? So, man,
That's
so
right.
many great points.
Yeah.
And I thank you,
Yeah.
Tamar, for coming on to my
Yeah.
show and
Thank you,
sharing
Mitzi.
this. I
Yeah, and
really
I send my
do.
condolences to you and your family and your husband. It sounds like it was a real surprise and a real sad loss. And it sounds like your father-in-law aged with his power intact.
Most definitely did, and
Yeah.
he lives in my heart, and my
Yeah.
sons. I mean, I see them and my husband, and then sometimes he still has his sad moments, but then it's like, at the end of the day, at least you have those good memories. You know what I mean? At least you
Yeah.
have that joy of what the man he was. And I think
Yeah.
we can all have that when we know somebody that has recently passed. We can carry on the joy and the life that they lived so that we can embody it and not let it go to waste. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I feel like nothing really truly goes to vain because everything in certain times will come out as wisdom if you allow time to be there. So yes, this conversation is so empowering. And ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, because how could you not? Please go check out Tamar. Go check out our last conversation talking about birthdays. Check out her book. Check out all the great content that she has to offer the world so that you can continue on thinking. So, with that being said, bye.